Florida Governor Ron DeSantis continues to get attacked, though, of course, and White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki is now claiming that Walt Disney World halting its employees' vaccine mandate shows that Governor DeSantis has actually moved the state somehow backward in the fight against COVID.
They're based in Florida, and obviously the governor there has consistently taken steps to take steps backward as it relates to fighting the pandemic, not forward. So that's where they're based.
Oh, it's all about Florida, she says. Let's bring in our panel to talk more about this. Back with us, Democratic strategist and former Obama advance man Robin Byro, also the founder of the freepressfail.com, Corrine Clark, and the host of the Watchdog on Wall Street radio show and the president of Markowski Investments, Chris Markowski. Great to have everyone with us. Robin, Jen Psaki, you can hear the frustration in her voice. She hates these questions because there's not really a good way to answer them. Ron DeSantis is so roundly criticized by this administration. But I'm hearing that Nancy Pelosi herself may actually be looking at real estate in the Sunshine State. So how do you explain that?
Let me answer it the way it should have been answered. This is fantastic news. This is great for all Americans, and it's great for Floridians. To continue that, COVID cases are down by nearly a quarter in the last 2 weeks nationwide. That's fantastic news. Period. End of story. It didn't need to be politicized. It's fantastic that Florida is seeing a decrease. They had a terrible number back in August, so they've done a lot to try to combat that and are in much better position now, and it's working.
And where did this really start to get politicized, in your opinion?
This, I wish I knew, John. I just can't stand that it is. These are basic health measures, and it should never have been politicized. I take great issue with that, John.
Yeah, I know, and I know you called out Democrats when they politicized the initial vaccine rollout as well. But Chris, I wanted to get your take on all this. I mean, again, we have constant examples here of how Florida did things. I don't want to say the right way, but it turns out it was more successful. Nobody really knew initially what the best approach was here. But why is it so hard for Democrats to admit, what Robin says needs to be said, that there are examples of success here and they should be celebrated by everyone, regardless of your political affiliation?
I think the more and more we learn about this, we can go back to kind of what we had known from the beginning, is that natural immunity is going to be better than anything else. And having kids unmasked and having them actually work through them and they get stronger so then they can fend it off. That's been the case. It seems interesting. Now, the CDC hasn't really done much in regards to studies with breakthrough cases. However, Israel has. And if you take a look there, they're seeing, yes, you know what, the vaccines do a great job of keeping you out of the hospital, but they don't do anything in regard to the spread. What does a great thing in regard to spread is natural immunity. And again, we needed to get that through the kids, the younger people, so we can kind of phase its way out. And it looks like it's working in Florida, and God willing, it continues.
Corrine, I want to focus on something that the White House said about lockdowns, the potential for lockdowns in the future. Take a listen.
We are not headed in that direction. We have the tools to accelerate the path out of this pandemic, widely available vaccinations, booster shots, kid shots, therapeutics, including monoclonal antibodies to help those who contract the virus. We can curb the spread of the virus without having to in any way shut down our economies.
All right, Corrine, what was missing from all of that? They didn't say anything about natural immunity.
Well, that is not surprising because they have neglected natural immunity this entire time. But it is nice to hear them say that they're not planning on shutting the nation down because, as we were just talking about, Ron DeSantis did not shut Florida down, and we're seeing the same progress there that we're seeing everywhere else where they did lock down and they did over-mask and over-police people. So at least they're not doing that again. I don't think it would go very well.
Right, and I don't think now's the time for that. There does seem to be, I think, an excitement among Americans for the holiday season here, but the mainstream press still wants to make sure you don't have as much fun as you're probably planning on. The New York Times has some ideas for unvaccinated kids. They should, quote, eat quickly and wear masks while not eating. This is in response to a reader's question in an opinion article. Times quote-unquote expert Dr. Lindsay Marr, an engineering professor at Virginia Tech. She studies airborne transmission of viruses, and she responds, quote, as the kids will not be fully vaccinated, I think some care is warranted, especially because some attendees are 65 and older. You could have the kids wear masks, eat quickly, and stay away from the older adults when eating. Isn't this going to cause, I mean, what's the risk of choking here? And, you know, maybe Thanksgiving at Dr. Marr's lab at Virginia Tech isn't where we want to celebrate the holidays. Anyone can jump in.
You bring up an excellent point. I want to say that. I want to say both of my children are vaccinated. I'm grateful that we were able to get my 9-year-old vaccinated recently, but that hasn't, not everyone, not all children have been able to get vaccinated. Some can't get vaccinated because they're immunocompromised. Of course, choking is always a hazard, but at the end of the day, the decision to vaccinate your children falls on the parents. So I made the decision to get mine vaccinated, but some people may not feel that way, and that's their right.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, there's limited evidence to prove that kids are actually vectors for the spread of this disease here. And, you know, again, the whole issue of wearing masks, the science is limited there as well. I mean, if you and I were medical doctors and we were in an operating room and we had professionally installed our N95 masks on, that would be a different story, but that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just a lot of lack of critical thinking by people out there, just the logic and reason behind all of these rules. It's almost become somewhat like a religion, where you've got a lot of people out there that, you know, whatever Fauci says, whatever the government's saying at any point in time, I must follow the rules. It's extraordinary to me, too, if you actually put any thought into this. And like, really, I'm going to pull my mask down, I'm going to be able to take a drink, and then I'm going to put it, and I'm not going to spread it. You know, what's the point? What's the logic and reason behind any of this? I think, you know, some people, it makes them feel comfortable. That's going to make you feel good at Thanksgiving dinner when you guys are all masked up. Have at it. Rather stick a hot poker in my eye.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like much fun. You know what makes me feel good at Thanksgiving dinner? Red wine. I don't normally drink it. Thanksgiving I always do, but that always makes me feel good at Thanksgiving. But maybe more red wine and less turkey, at least according to the Today Show. They had some tips, Corinne, if you're concerned about cost this Thanksgiving. Here you go.
Perhaps forego the turkey. Bear with me.
Ooh.
I know that is the staple of the Thanksgiving meal. However, some people think turkey is overrated, and so it tends to be the most expensive thing on the table. Maybe you do an Italian feast instead. And I will say this, if you tell everyone you're having a Thanksgiving without turkey, some guests may drop off the list, and that's a way to cut costs too.
All right, so passive-aggressive behavior apparently on the menu as well, Corinne, this Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, this is the modern version of let them eat cake. We're just supposed to eat sides and pumpkin pie and no turkey because no one can afford it anymore. Such neglect for the actual problem of inflation. They just want to talk about what you can just go without. They don't want to talk about how we can actually fix the issue of rising costs everywhere.
All right, I want to go around because this is a very important scientific poll right now for the panel. We'll start with Robin and then go through the team here. Favorite side for Thanksgiving? Robin, go.
Oh, Mama's sausage stuffing. There you go.
Oh, very Southern of you, sausage stuffing. Notice he doesn't call it dressing either. Stuffing. That's very important. All right, everybody else, Go ahead. Hop in here. What's your favorite?
Butternut squash.
Butternut squash, okay. Is it a squash casserole or just how is it prepared?
No, my mom makes it, and it's fantastic.
Say no more. Mom's special squash. Sounds delicious. Corinne, what do you got for your favorite Thanksgiving side?
Casserole.
I didn't catch that.
Green bean casserole.
Green bean casserole, yes. With the onions on top, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that's classic as well. Classic. I was telling Sean and Emma earlier, I'm a sweet potato casserole kind of guy with the marshmallows on top, definitely. Sneaking a little extra dessert with the entree. Can't beat that. All right, Robin, Corinne, and Chris, come back. We're going to see you guys in the next hour as well. Plenty more to talk about. All right, welcome back. Kyle Rittenhouse now calling out President Biden for what he describes as defamation of character back when the candidate, Joe Biden, tweeted this out. Video that includes images of Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha under the text saying, quote, "There's no other way to put it. The President of the United States refused to disavow white supremacists on the debate stage last night." Now, Rittenhouse gave his first nationally televised interview since the verdict, and here's what he said to Tucker Carlson.
Mr. President, if I could say one thing to you, I would urge you to go back and watch the trial and understand the facts before you make a statement. It's it's actual malice, defaming my character for him to say something like that. I have really good lawyers who are taking care of that right now. So I'm hoping one day there will be accountability for their actions that they did.
And there should be. Let's welcome back our panel, Democratic strategist and former Obama advance man Robin Biro, also the founder of FreePressFail.com, Corinne Clark, and host of the Watchdog on Wall Street radio show, president of Markowski Investments, Chris Markowski. You know, this continues, Robin, until this day. I mean, we have people who continue to call Kyle Rittenhouse a murderer. I'm looking at a video of Stephen Colbert right now who doesn't seem to understand how the law works. And, you know, I also want to point to Ibram X. Kendi, and I call this How to Be an Idiot. During an interview, Kendi said that the Rittenhouse case will, quote, cause more people to want to bring weapons to what he called peaceful protests. So again, that lie being perpetuated and claim self-defense if they end up killing someone. I mean, this has become an industry for guys like Kendi, completely detached from the reality of the situation here, Robin. And, you know, it's hard to add up how much damage has been done to Kyle Rittenhouse's reputation.
And what bothers me also, John, is that he had trial by media in this circumstance. And I think that's something that we can all agree on, despite our political differences on this panel. That really was a thing here. Now, of course, we already saw that the families of the deceased have said that they're going to sue for wrongful death. Those will play out. We'll see how that happens. I have no idea. I want to say this, though. This is important. I did not myself watch all of that trial from beginning to end, but I had friends that I really trust that are far left, in fact, in real life, who did watch that. And they said that they wouldn't have come up with a different verdict had they been on that jury.
And that's important to note here, Robin. But I think, you know, and I have to get your take on this because you still have Joe Biden refusing to apologize for lumping Kyle Rittenhouse in with white supremacists without any evidence to indicate that that was the case here. And this lie continues to get perpetuated here. How irresponsible is it for Joe Biden or the White House at this point to not come out and say they were wrong?
Worse, they've even said that they were right.
Hold on. Let me get Robin to answer that, Corinne, real quick, and then we'll get to you.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I take issue with some specific things that he actually did say. I think that it would be appropriate to apologize. Yeah,
and you know, again, I appreciate your candor on this. It's just so obvious. Corinne, go ahead.
Yeah, he didn't apologize for what he said before. He even doubled down after the verdict to say that he thought the verdict was wrong, which, as Robin mentioned, even very far left people are not saying that. People who watch this trial know that there was no other verdict except the one that we got. So I think it's really irresponsible for Joe Biden to continue to feed into this lie that he perpetuated during the election cycle. The total manipulation and destruction of a private citizen. He's not a politician. He's a young kid, and they manipulated his entire life to prove a political point. Very irresponsible.
The other thing, too, we have to talk about in this conversation is the left's ability to wrap their arms around the defund the police movement and the cash, the bail reform movement. And now we have this situation in Waukesha, Wisconsin. We can meet the man responsible for this guy being out of prison. His name is District Attorney John Chisholm. He's been a leading figure among the progressive prosecutors who argue on behalf of this bail reform movement. I mean, we saw this guy in Waukesha. He should not have been out on the streets. Yet here we are, Chris.
Well, we see this all over the country. And, you know, it's funny. We have a lot of the left in the chattering classes out there saying and decrying vigilante justice. But we don't really have much of a justice system in many areas of the country. Quite frankly, if you're going to catch people and you're going to let them go, $500 bail after hitting a woman, then trying to run her over with a car. You get that individual, I don't remember his name, saying he's worried about people carrying weapons. Well, you know, there's a lot of states here in this country where you can carry weapons. And quite frankly, I think that they're going to be a little bit more of a polite society than what we're dealing with in these inner cities. I have small business owners all around the country, and I think that they should have the right to defend their business if anyone tries to smash a window. What we're seeing happening right now with Louis Vuitton and Nordstrom's and Beverly Hills, what do you think this is from? There's no repercussions
Yeah.
for any actions.
Yeah, this
So
is the logical
again, this is
conclusion
you're
of what
gonna get
happens when you
justice.
say police aren't necessary, they're not going to enforce the rules, and if you do get caught, you're not actually going to serve any time for what you are accused of doing here. And Robin, you know, progressive Democrats, they own this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, they're still out there pushing for bail reform. Here's what AOC tweeted right here. When prosecutors see excessive cash bail, it results in increased rates of incarceration, particularly for low-income defendants. You know, not technically wrong here, but the timing of this is what matters here. And specifically when it comes to violent offenders, they're the ones who should not be getting out of jail. And then we have this from Rashida Tlaib.
Seeing that the statistics about so many people that at a very young age that are in there that probably would not have been in there but for the fact that they were struggling with mental illness or other issues within their family life, that I think, you know, they would have been more rehabilitated if we came with care first with it rather than criminalization. And that's just true.
There's also a follow-up question there. Jonathan Swan asked her about, you know, look, this calls for releasing everyone from prison, basically, and she did not have a good response there. So, again, not a good look for Democrats, Robin.
This is tricky because I supported former President Trump when he did prison reform and criminal justice reform. We still need that. We're not there yet. There's still a lot to reform.
And let me jump in right there, Robin, because there's a difference between, you know, letting out nonviolent drug offenders who have spent decades in prison for selling marijuana one time, than letting out people who have a, you know, 20 years of violent criminal history on their record. There's a difference there, and I think we can agree that's the difference between what President Trump was doing and what Rashida Tlaib and AOC are calling for.
And I've got to say, you know, I take great issue with most of all of the squad. Let's just call it like it is. Yeah. There are political extremists on the left. There are political extremists on the right. I would assert that that is not how the majority of Americans feel. We're all mostly somewhere right there in the middle. I certainly can't identify personally with the politics of the squad.
Right. And, you know, as much as I appreciate your ability to always kind of find a middle ground here, Robin, you can't say this is a problem for both the right and the left, because, Karine, the only party advocating for this is the Democratic Party. And, you know, Republicans look like the party of law and order.
Yeah, it's also interesting to hear this from AOC in particular, because I think she's talked a lot about abuse against women, and she talks a lot about being victimized herself. And these laws that she's proposing impact women the most and in the worst ways. Just this weekend, like we mentioned, $1,000 bail for domestic dispute. Who do you think that impacts? It's women. And AOC is not standing up for women when she proposes bail reform for violent criminals.
Yeah, and, you know, Jacob Blake, too, going back to Kenosha, Wisconsin, how that all started, again, you know, an assault on his baby's mama, and that led to all the violence in Kenosha. This is an important issue, and I'm glad you brought that up, Karine. We are out of time. Everybody, thank you so much for your candor here, Robin, Karine, and Chris. We appreciate it.